During this tutorial, I'll look at a couple of techniques that are useful when we want to add more interest to our movie making. I'm going to talk initially about using what are known as cutaways, and prior to this, using markers so we can line up where we would like our cutaways to be inserted. I think the first thing to do though is explain what a cutaway is and how they work. Well, as its name suggests, a cutaway leaves the clip that we are viewing at a user-determined point and focuses on a different view, a related view, although that's not entirely necessary. Sometimes people use cutaways to be a juxtaposition from the original clip, but we're not going to do that in this instance. We're going to use a related view. Well, with the cutaway view, we see a few seconds of a different view, as I say, but whilst we retain the same audio from the original clip. Now, the reason we use the same audio is because we don't want it to jar. If we use a cutaway with different audio, it's that change of audio that alerts the user that we have used a different view. The process of using a cutaway really is to make it look seamless, and therefore the audio component, being the same audio, helps us achieve this. Anyway, let's see this in action. With this first clip on the timeline, if I move the CTI across to various places, although to be fair this isn't the longest clip ever, but anyway, you'll see it is pretty much a static, peaceful shot. Well, to be fair, that's okay for quite a short clip like this. But imagine it was a much longer clip and we wanted to add more interest by having another view cut in of the same scene but from a different angle. Well, that's what we are going to do by initially setting a pair of positional markers where we would like the cutaway to be inserted. I'll just hit play to see this to ascertain where I'd like the markers to be placed. I think I'll go to here, I'll place my CTI there, and then add a marker to the timeline so we know where we want the alternate cutaway clip to be inserted. I could use M as a shortcut, but first before I do that, I'll use this button up here next to the in and out setting buttons. This is the marker button, and once clicked, we see the marker symbol on the timeline for both the sequence panel and up on the timeline in the project panel. I'll just drag the CTI along the sequence timeline now to get to the next marker at just over a second in, and then hit the marker button. Okay, now we have a pair of markers to act as visual indicators and lining up points for our separate cutaway clip. Now at this stage what I could do is I could drag the CTI to the first marker, but perhaps the best method is to have Premiere Pro do the hard work and snap the CTI to the first marker. To be able to do this, first of all right click here to open the context sensitive menu where you'll see these many marker options. We've got mark in, mark out, mark clip. But also down here, although we don't want to use these, either go to the in or go to out. As I say, we don't want those. What we do want are these down in the fourth section, where we have these options: add marker, go to next marker, go to previous marker. Well, we want the go to next marker because our CTI is just before it. So that's what we're doing, we're going to the next marker. Okay, so now our CTI is snapped to marker number 1. By the way, if you double click on a marker, I'll do it with this first one, we open this marker dialog box. Now to be honest, it's a little bit too much for what we want at the moment because it allows us to add in all sorts of information. Also, we can use it to create DVD markers or chapter markers for programs such as Adobe's Encore, or even create web links. Now I'm going to leave it set to comment marker. In fact, we don't actually need to add a comment for what we want, but I'll go through it for a sense of completeness. I'll name our marker number 1, and in the comments, because I know I'm going to remove it later, I'll add in remove after, and then I'll OK it. As I say, it's not really necessary for what we want. We don't really need to add in that information. That's us set with where the cutaway comes in. Let's find an alternate clip now of the same view, but a different perspective. So I'll come over to the project panel and I'll open up the video bin, and then simply scroll down to the file that I want to use. I'm going to go for one of these right down at the bottom. By the way, if you open up the video bin like this, and you want to navigate back to see all the other bins, hit this button up here. That'll take you back up a level. Okay, now I'll just open up the video bin again and scroll down to the bottom once more. And with this particular file, I'll double click it to open in my source monitor, and then I'll place my CTI in the source monitor on the timeline where I want this cutaway to start. So I'll go for there, between 2 and 3 seconds in, and now I'll use M for the shortcut to create the marker. Now unfortunately this screen resolution means I'm squashed up a little, So I need to use this reveal button to access the buttons collapsed out of view. Okay, so now we see these options. We could add a marker, or mark in, or mark out, etc. I'll click on mark in to state this position is the start or the end point of our cutaway clip. And then now we could use this clip like this, but I want to show you an interesting thing you can do. Despite setting the in point there at the marker position, if I reset the in point to just before the marker, when I bring this to the timeline in a moment, I can snap this cutaway clip marker to the main timeline original clip marker, even though the in point will be before it. Right, I'll just set an out point now by clicking here again and choosing appropriately there. Okay, you'd imagine my next step would be to just left click and drag and drop the ranged clip to the timeline now. However, this would bring both the video and the audio components in. We don't want the audio. Remember what I said earlier on? We only want the video component because we're going to retain the original audio even though we are going to cut away for a couple of seconds. What I need then is just the video component. Remember we saw those buttons in an earlier tutorial? Well, at this screen resolution, I need to expand to access those buttons. So I'll left click and drag to the right until those relevant buttons reveal. Okay, so now I can access the drag video only button, or if I wanted the audio, which I don't, I could choose the audio button. As I say, I only want the video only, so I'll left click on this drag video only button and drag it down to the timeline and line it up with the marker there. However, because I've made the in point for this cutaway to be a little bit too far away from my marker, it won't fit in this sequence right at the beginning. Well, we can get round that. All I need to do is move the in point closer to the marker. As it is at the moment, our cutaway marker keeps snapping to the second marker, which is our out marker really. So I'll just zoom in on the timeline first of all, and I'll move our in point on the cutaway clip so it is closer to that marker there. And once I'm done, when I place the markers together now, well, you'll see that sort of cross symbol there as they snap together. Okay, all done. Just to finish off, I need to trim away the start of this cutaway at the marker's position, and then trim away the end to our second timeline marker so it fits in that predetermined space. Okay, all done. Let's play it back. It is only short, but you get the idea. That's how we use markers, not necessarily for cutaways. You might want to use it for any number of reasons, but I've used markers here in combination with cutaways so that I can easily line up a different perspective of the same shot.